Feast of St. Hilarion Abbot, but also it's going to be back here in Minneapolis, and a few considerations today. A few considerations today taken on the occasion next week of the Catholic Identity Conference in near Steubenville, Ohio. We have an occasion in which Society of St. Pius X priest, Institute of Christ the King priest, and a priest of the Fraternity of St. Peter, as well as Bishop Snyder, an Apostolic bishop, and another Apostolic bishop of Eastern Rite, will all be together, along with Michael Matt and Remnant and other people, together giving conferences on the Vatican II and where do we go from here. Now, how did we get to this point in 2017 where we find the Society of St. Pius X priest, Father Jonathan Luke, young priest of the Society, Fraternity of St. Peter priest, Institute of Christ the King priest, two adult priests, a Novostodal bishop and another Novostodal bishop, all gathering together to talk about tradition and Vatican II and where we go from here. When you look at the Archbishop Lefebvre, back in 1988-89, what did he say? He said when the Fraternity of St. Peter was founded in 88, and all of a sudden now there are indult communities who have the Latin Tridentine Mass. They have the Latin Tridentine Mass, they have the approval of Rome, and so people ask the Archbishop, so what's the problem? You have the Latin Tridentine Mass, but they also have the Latin Tridentine Mass. You have you are not approved by Rome. They are approved by Rome. But what's the problem? Yes, they have the Mass, but they don't have the correct faith because they accept the errors of Vatican II, and they find themselves united to the errors of Vatican II and approved by the Vatican II Church. And then Archbishop Lefebvre said, the people must make up their minds. Are you going to stand for the truth of the faith, because this is where our strength is, or are we going to stand only for ceremonies, for the incense, for a Latin Mass? A Latin Mass without the faith does not help us. It is the faith that is the essential. The Mass is the center of that faith. And so, as said also, they have betrayed us, they have betrayed us, they have betrayed us. That's the problem of this new group. Now, 30 years later, or 29 years later, we find that the Fraternity of St. Peter, the Institute of Christ and the SSPX, and the conservative Novostodal bishops are all together. Now, did the Fraternity of St. Peter change? Did the Institute of Christ the King change? Did the conservative Novostodal bishop change? Did the Novostodal church change? The answer is no, except by degrees, it's a little worse than it was before. Because the original Fraternity of St. Peter priest in 1988 said, we will never celebrate the new Mass, though we tolerate it. Since that time, multiple priests have celebrated the new Mass in the Fraternity of St. Peter, and some of them do celebrate the new Mass in the Fraternity of St. Peter, particularly in Europe, and they have the written in writing that the Fraternity of St. Peter priests and any indult priest can and should celebrate the new Mass and participate in it, particularly on Holy Thursday, and that no superior in the Fraternity of St. Peter or any indult community can prevent their priests from celebrating that Mass. And they must accept the profession of faith given by Cardinal Ratzinger, a Novostodal Vatican II profession of faith. And so this they have to accept officially in writing. In 98, when they first started, they said, well, we're not really going to accept all these things. They said that verbally, but now they accept it. So they're worse off than they were in 88. When Archbishop Lefebvre said, they have betrayed us, they have betrayed us, they have betrayed us. So now we find ourselves 29 years later. And the Fraternity of St. Peter, the Society of St. Pius X, the Institute of Christ the King, are gathering together with Novostodal bishops to talk about Vatican II and where we go from here. The idea being that Vatican II is dead. The idea being that Vatican II is a thing of the past. It's finished. And now we've got to move on to better things and better times. Well, the fact is, the Vatican II is not dead, and Vatican II is very much alive in our situation today. And what is our problem here? What is our problem? Let me be more brief here. The problem is we're dealing with But an experiment, the conclusion of experiments that some scientists did some time ago with the experiment of the 5 monkeys, where 4 monkeys are placed in a cage. We're in the stage now of the 5th monkey, and it's become very clear that we're in that stage in society. So 4 monkeys are placed in a cage, and then a banana is hung in the middle of them. The monkeys, liking bananas, reach over the banana to grab it. When they reach for the banana, there's a man outside with a fire hose, and he sprays them heavily with water and knocks them down. Every time the monkey reaches for a banana, they are sprayed and knocked down. After a short period of time, the monkeys no longer reach for the banana. They let the banana hang, and they no longer reach for it. After a short time has passed, one of the monkeys is removed, and another monkey is put into the cage. This monkey sees a banana, he reaches for it. The other 3 monkeys beat him up. They pull him down so he doesn't touch the banana. So he doesn't go for the banana. Then they remove the 2nd monkey. And he comes in, and the other 3 monkeys, including the one that never got sprayed with water, beat him up. They pull out a 3rd monkey. And then the other 3 monkeys attack the new monkey, and 2 of them have never been sprayed by water. 3 of them never sprayed by water. And then finally the 4th monkey is removed, and not a single monkey has been sprayed by water. And enter the 5th monkey. The 5th monkey comes in, the 4th monkey, and none of the 4 monkeys were sprayed by water. He comes out, and a 5th monkey comes in, he reaches for the banana, and all the other monkeys beat him up. And no one has a memory of the water being sprayed. Now, while this is applied to the present situation, the example is used as an example of how mind control works and how the Masonic and communist system works. In the beginning, the communists, the modernists, the Mason comes into a community, and they drive in their modern ideas, and they punish anyone that goes against them. Excommunications, for instance, being thrown out of dioceses, for instance, being shut out of churches, for instance, because they don't accept the errors and heresies of Vatican II. So in the beginning, there's violence and spraying water for anyone that reaches for the banana, or anyone reaches for the truth, anyone reaches for the faith. Or anyone reaches to see that there's a problem with the Vatican II on the negative side, or reaches for the faith on the positive side. And so they're sprayed and walked down. But then what happens? Someone comes in, and the others knock him down. Until eventually, after all the 4 monkeys are gone, the man with the fire hose can go on vacation. He doesn't need to spray anymore, because now there has developed a habit. If anyone reaches for the banana, they're going to be knocked down. Now enter the 5th monkey. Now he wants to find out what happened. Why is it that we're all monkeys, we like bananas? Why is it that I'm going in here, I reach for a banana, and I get knocked down? He finds out that this monkey did it because the other monkey did it. That monkey did it because the other monkey did it. That monkey did it because the other monkey did it. So what's our problem? Mean monkeys. How do we solve the problem of the banana? Get rid of mean monkeys, because the problem is mean monkeys. The 5th monkey comes in, he's trying to fix the problem. He says, we have a problem with mean monkeys. Now, you heard something in the past about a fire hose. He's heard something in the past about a banana, and the people reached for the banana, and they got nailed by the evil garb of the fire hose. But all he's seen is mean monkeys beating each other up. How are we going to solve the problem of the banana? Make the monkeys no longer be mean. And don't talk to me about the fire hose. None of these guys experienced the fire hose. None of these guys know what a fire hose is. None of these guys have been sprayed by water. So don't talk to me about fire hoses. Don't talk to me about water. Let's talk about monkeys not being mean. Let's get together and let's agree that beating each other up is not helping us get full. Let's get together and let's agree that we got to stop beating each other up, and we got to all start agreeing to reach for that banana. Forget about the fire hose. Forget about the water. Now this is how mind control is done, or a goal of mind control. In the beginning, the infiltrator comes in with his false ideas. He is malicious. He is violent. He then tries to get the others to have a certain behavior because of his maliciousness and violence. As time progresses, he leaves. He leaves, and they're going to do what he wants them to do on their own. This is the age of the 5th monkey. So here's our situation. We have Michael Max. We have Fraternity of St. Peter priest, an Institute of Christ the King priest, an SSPX priest, a Novus Ordo bishop, and another Novus Ordo bishop. all gathering together to say, what's the problem of Vatican II? Each of them is supposed to be standing on a different side. They're supposed to be enemies one of another, but they don't know what's going on. They're going to say, like Michael Matt and Chris Ferrara in an interview just a couple weeks ago that is in the Remnant Catacombs archive. There's these conversations in the catacombs. And Michael Matt discusses with Chris Ferrara about the problem of tradition. He says, Rome Reports made an interview. Rome Reports made an interview just a short time ago in which they said 80 signatures, almost 80 signatories, signed a document accusing Pope Francis of being a heretic, of teaching 7 heresies. These signatures were reject Vatican II. So Michael Matt and Chris Ferrara say, well, what do you mean they reject Vatican II? What is this reject Vatican II? It's obviously just to give us a bad name, as if whoever rejects the errors of Pope Francis is a rejecter of Vatican II. This is absurd. We don't say because we reject the errors of Pope Francis that we reject Vatican II. Vatican II is not the problem. We can only say that we reject Vatican II insofar as we reject an attitude. We reject a spirit. Like the 5th monkey that comes in and sees, you know the problem here? You 4 monkeys got a bad attitude. The problem is you guys are all mean, and we got to get the monkeys to change their attitude. And they realize, no, the problem is not monkeys having a bad attitude. The problem is that when you reach for a banana, you get sprayed with water and you get knocked down with a very powerful fire hose. And so take away the fire hose, take away the spray of water, and it becomes safe to go for the banana again. What caused the monkey to act that way? What is it that makes him violent? What makes him beat up the other monkeys? It's the fire hose and the water, and the evil man behind it. But the fire hose and the water is the problem. Now, what is it that caused the difficulties of the church today? It's Vatican Council II, and the errors and the heresies contained in it. Now we find a new dogma of tradition, the neo-tradition, which in fact should be promoted by communists, by Masons, by Satanist infiltrators in the church. These are the ones who should be saying, don't look at Vatican II, that's not the problem. It's just the spirit of Vatican II that's the problem. It's the attitude of Vatican II that's the problem. And you can't condemn a spirit, you can't condemn an attitude, nor can you be obliged to believe in the spirit or believe in an attitude. Chris Ferrara says in his commentary just a week or 2 ago, he says, there's no errors, there's no actual dogmatic propositions in Vatican II that say you must believe this in order to be a Catholic. So therefore, you can't be, it only expresses a pastoral direction, a pastoral movement, and hence it's not dogmatic, and therefore we cannot be held to any pastoral direction. And it's not, we cannot be called heretics. So therefore we simply hold the Catholic faith, and we are against heterodoxy. And so as holders of the Catholic faith, we're against the liberalized. What does it mean when we say that we're against Vatican II? It means we're against the liberalization of the church. That's what we're against. Don't be distracted by Vatican II. We are against the liberalization of the church, which is undergoing. Why is it happening? Because there are wicked men, monkeys, in Rome, monkeys in charge, who are violently attacking anyone that reaches for the faith. And so we have to get rid of, we have to tell those monkeys, stop doing that, stop having that attitude, stop having that spirit, and don't use Vatican II as your excuse. But what's the real problem? There are direct heresies and errors in Vatican II which make the problems of today. The errors and heresies are there. So they say it's a pastoral direction. One example, it's a pastoral directive that says we should give Holy Communion to the divorced and remarried, unrepentant, divorced and remarried. To the unrepentant, sinful, divorced and remarried, we should give Holy Communion. Is that a pastoral directive? It is a doctrine. There's no possibility to give any directive that doesn't have a doctrine behind it. Supposing that I tell you, don't touch my car. That's a pastoral directive. It's a moral directive. Is there any doctrine in it? Yes. There's a doctrine of there is a car, a real car in the driveway, and I own it. I am the owner of that car. Because I am the owner of that car, because the car is real, therefore I can tell you, don't touch it. Why? Because the owner of the car has the right to decide who touches and who doesn't touch the car. There are many dogmas behind don't touch my car. One of them is the car is real and it's in the driveway. Another is it's my car. I have the right of private property and private ownership. We're not communists. It's not the property of the state. It's not the property of the people. It's my property. So remember, this land is my land. This land ain't your land. This land was made for only me. Right? So that this is my car. And therefore it's my property. And these are doctrines. It's not possible to teach any moral thing that's not a doctrine. It's impossible. And it's absurd to say that any statement that is expressed by a human being is only moral directive. Every statement has truth in it or error in it. And it's a truth that makes the moral directive stick. If it really is my car, you can't touch it. If it is the community property and you're part of the community, you can touch it. Therefore, is it true that it's my car? It is, therefore, you can't touch it. Do I have the right to tell you you can't touch the car? Well, if you are taking someone dying to the hospital in a danger of death, I don't have the right to tell you not to touch my car. So in special circumstances, I don't have the right to tell you not to touch it. What is behind that? The doctrine that the life of someone is worth more value than my property. Hence, doctrine says you can take the car when there is a danger of death, grave, imminent danger of death. Doctrine says you cannot touch the car when I say you cannot touch it because it's my car. Doctrine says you can touch the car if it's a community car, you're a member of the community, and I'm telling you that it's my car, which means I'm not telling the truth. Doctrine, therefore, is all around the statement, don't touch my car. And so it is in all of the so-called moral statements of Vatican II, the statements about ecumenism, the statement, for instance, in the new Code of Canon Law, that someone who is a non-Catholic, who does not have the Catholic faith, living outside the church, a Protestant, who believes in the Blessed Sacrament, may receive Holy Communion. That is not just a pastoral directive. It is a doctrine that those people outside the church are in communion with people inside the church. And therefore, it's a lie. If the doctrine is true, then Protestants are Catholics and Catholics are Protestants. If the doctrine is false, then it's a sin to allow a Protestant to receive Holy Communion. But it's a doctrine that makes that directive an evil directive. The same thing with Amoris Laetitia. What is the problem with Amoris Laetitia? The doctrine that says a person knowingly, willingly, living in the state of mortal sin as an enemy of God and a public sinner has the right to receive Holy Communion. That's a doctrine contrary to the teaching of St. Paul, contrary to the teaching of Christ. It's a lie, and it's a doctrinal error. It's not just a moral error. So to say the problem is that there's a new directive and there's a new guise is to kill the attack against modernism. It's to shoot at straw men. Because what happens when Cardinal Mueller retires, he'll be replaced by another cardinal. And they will have to attack him. It's not about the persons, it's about the doctrine that they hold. That's the problem. Now we have a meeting of all kinds of these Catholics of different stripes coming together. And the priests of the Fraternity of St. Peter and the priests of the Society of St. Pius X are going to be standing on stage together in unity. What is their unity? One of them says that Bishop Snyder says the new Mass and is a promoter of Vatican II. Father Loop, the society priest, is supposed to be against the new Mass, but he's not really against it because his superior put in his name the doctrinal statement of 2014-12, which says the new Mass is legitimately promulgated and not just perhaps valid, which means it's a good Mass and you can't be against it. What does that mean in practice? It means you can go to a conference with a priest celebrating the Novus Ordo Mass. If Bishop Snyder is going to say Mass, he's going to say the Novus Ordo Mass in the same building that Father Luke is going to say his traditional Masses in. They're all going to have the Masses together. Their private Masses, so to speak, will all be on the one side altar new Mass, another side altar Latin Mass, another one side altar a Latin Mass approved by Rome, another side altar Latin Mass unapproved by Rome, and they're all going to be together. Because according to Rome, Father Luke, our young society priest, will be there with the permission of our superiors as a representative of the SSPX. He is a vagus priest, which according to the law of the church, if he really is a vagus priest, he can't be allowed to say Mass. He can't be allowed to be functioning as an okay priest. So according to their principles, they shouldn't accept Father Luke because he's a vagus. He's unapproved, doesn't belong to any diocese, approved by the church, doesn't belong to any order approved by the church, but they're all going to be together. What is their unity? It is a communist unity. It is a unity of ecumenism. It is Assisi in Catholic tradition. These Catholic identity conferences, these new conferences in the Fatima Center, they are essentially the repetition of Assisi in tradition. We can call it Assisi Light. You got regular Pepsi, and then you got Diet Pepsi, or Pepsi Light. This is the diet version. It doesn't have all the sugar that the other stuff has. It's all essentially the same. And which one's worse? The diet. That's the one that's worse. So the fact is, it is Assisi within tradition. What is Assisi? The gathering of the world religions together to pray. And each religion has something to offer, because we're against really non-religious people. Now, Assisi 3, we invite the atheists in as well, so we're against non-people. And so they don't know what they're against, but they're still going to be together to pray. This is Assisi within Catholic tradition. What is Assisi? It's a sin against the first commandment. It's a sin against the first commandment. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. He is the truth. Thou shalt not have strange gods before him. Thou shalt not have strange doctrines before him. Thou shalt not have strange things before him. What is happening? We are finding now good men, such as Michael Matt, such as Father Luke in the Society of St. Pius X, such as Chris Ferrara. Good men are now becoming the representatives of the false doctrine of the Masons and the Communists. This is far more powerful than wicked men doing it. In the beginning, it was wicked men. Wicked men who said, don't worry about the truth. Let's get together. We're all fighting abortion. So let's fight. Let's pray together. Protestants and Catholics. Let's not talk about our differences. Let's talk about what holds us together. That's what JFK said in his famous speech. So why don't we talk about what holds us together and not what makes us different? Let's set aside our Catholic differences and don't listen to what St. Pius X said in his letter on the encyclical on the Sion, where he says, when you go to a democratic meeting, and you don't carry your faith fore and foremost. That's the Catholic faith. No other faith matters. It's not faith anyway. We don't care what you do. Go to hell on whichever way you want to go. But there's only one Catholic faith. This faith cannot be set aside. This faith cannot be set down. That faith is carried into the front door. And when you go in to make yourself equal as another equal voice, you have left Christ. That's what St. Pius X says in his letter on the Sion. You've left the truth. You've left the faith. You've left Christ. We don't go in as if we're equal to the others. We are not equal to the others. We hold the one holy Roman Catholic truth. And Vatican II is a heresy, an heretical council, an erroneous council that has doctrine contained in it. And that doctrine is essentially the doctrine of modernism. That modernism is a synthesis of all heresies. And it must be wiped out. It is completely false. But now we have good men with good hearts. Which is more dangerous? For a young man at the age of 18 to meet a girl who's a druggie, who's impure, and who has all kinds of an alcoholic and fools around with all kinds of boys, and he falls in love with her. Another 18-year-old boy falls in love with a really nice, good, gentle, Protestant, moral girl. Which one will lose the faith and never get it back? The one that marries a nice Protestant. The one that marries the wicked girl who's always fooling around, who's doing drugs, etc. That one will wake up. I can't stay with this wickedness. I can't live this wicked life. I must go back to God. But the one that goes to the nice one that means well may not ever wake up. God will always give the grace to wake up, but he is less likely to wake up. Hence the purpose of the communists. Inside of Russia has spread its errors throughout the world. Spread its errors throughout the Catholic Church. It is now spreading its errors in a very big way throughout Catholic so-called tradition. What is the purpose of the communist? The communist infiltrator comes in and gives us communist ideas. He lays the seed, but let the seed grow on its own. He then can leave, and the seed will grow. And it will work and operate as he wants it to operate so that he doesn't have to be there to tell them, don't forget to hold this communist opinion and that communist opinion. So now we have good men who say, we've got a serious fight here. We're finding more and more, for instance, within the Society of St. Pius X, the Catholic tradition, more and more every day, especially since Pope Francis became Pope. Pope Francis is different than Vatican II. Pope Francis is worse than Vatican II. We got to fight against Pope Francis. He's gone so far, has he? Is there one doctrine that Francis teaches that's not in Vatican II? The answer is no. Is there one thing he's done that doesn't fit in perfect harmony with Vatican II? The answer is no. He's simply taking Vatican II seriously and putting it into practice. You cannot claim that he is against Vatican II. He's gone further than Vatican II. Why is this being done? So that we will fight against his excesses without fighting against the cause of the excess. We will fight against little bitty problems without fighting against the source and the cause of the problems. Hence, we are doomed to complete failure. This is the purpose of infiltrators in an enemy camp. You can't get them to love you, so get them to continue to hate you, but shoot at the wrong targets. Get them to continue to hate you, but attack the wrong positions, so that you are guaranteed victory. Who controls the opposition in a battle is guaranteed victory. Now, the opposition is being controlled by the devil. We are supposed to be the opposition of the devil. It's being controlled. Humanly speaking, the devil is guaranteed victory. However, we know by divine revelation, which is infallible, that while it will appear the devil is having his victory, he shall not have it. He shall be defeated. But humanly speaking, all the parts are in place in order to make this victory for Satan. This victory will not be accomplished. But we can see how the prophecy of St. Francis of Assisi, before he died, is coming true. St. Francis of Assisi said, there will come errors in the last days, grave errors that will not be opposed. And because they do not oppose those errors, they will fall into all kind of scandals, and they will fall. And there will be some who have great confidence in their orders. The order of the Franciscans, in his case, and the order of all other orders. He said orders in the plural, not just the Franciscan order, but there will some that have confidence in their orders to hold them up, rather than opposing error and standing for the truth. And there will be two kinds of preachers in those days. Those who are silent about the truth, and those that trample it underfoot. When what is required? The opposition to the errors. Not just silence about them, but opposition to them. Now we are finding new movement and tradition that's become exceedingly powerful, and that people are accepting it. There's encouragement, they say. More Latin Masses throughout the world. More priests and catholics. More vocations in conservative Novus Ordo seminaries. What is this good for? Keeping the liberal modernist movement alive. That's what it's good for. What is necessary is to keep the Holy Roman Catholic Church alive, and this church is getting smaller, and the souls holding the faith are getting less. And this Catholic Identity Conference coming up in only a few days is another example, a very serious example of the gravity of our problem. How is it that the Society of St. Pius X can go into this case and go into this conference as if they are one with them, when they are not, when they're not supposed to be? In fact, they are, because they've given up the faith. And then when you get to the brass tacks, who is going to say the most hard-hitting truths against Vatican II? It's going to be Bishop Schneider. It's going to be the Fraternity of St. Peter priest. It's going to be the representatives of the Novus Ordo. Who's going to be the softest against the Novus Ordo? It's going to be the SSPX priest. So we saw with the Mors Laetitia just a little short time ago, for the 40 original authors, 100% Novus Ordo, clear doctrine. Pope Francis, you have said 7 heresies, and these aren't the only heresies, there's more. Here are the reasons they're heresies. This is what you taught. This is what Council of Trent says. And then unfortunately they add John Paul II and Vatican II. Which kind of cuts their own legs off. But then the Bishop Villay and Father Glaise and Father Gaudron, what do they say? The representatives of the SSPX? There's no heresy in Amors Laetitia. So we're finding the faith more and more being walked away by us, by the Society of St. Pius X. And that there is a better sign of faith in the Novus Ordo than the Society of St. Pius X, and yet they won't reject Vatican II. Why is the devil doing this? To say the problem is not the errors of the council. The problem is not the heresies of the council. The problem is the misapplication of the counsel. The problem is the wicked men. And therefore, when they shoot at those two things, they are dead. No possibility of victory over the enemies of God. There must be a standing up for the whole truth against this wickedness, and then we must continue to do so. And then, so we pray for those at this Fatima conference, or this conference of the remnant coming up next week, be deceived, not standing for the truth. Our Sister Lefebvre said, these have betrayed us, they have betrayed us, they have betrayed us. Because they're not standing for the truth. They made compromise with error in order to get their Latin Mass. Compromise with error in order to get approbation by the superiors who are now working against God. We cannot make these compromises, but stand firmly for the truth. Let us ask the grace to continue to do that. We'll close with that. God bless you all. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.